All right, I'm Logan, and this is Chris Garcia here, owner of Convergence Paragliding. He's gonna help out today. We got the wings out, and here at Ealing's Park in Santa Barbara, we're just gonna do a couple of kind of takeoffs. We're gonna do some acting for you, really kind of hone in on some of the importance of launching, choosing a launch, all that stuff.
All right, so anytime you show up at a spot that you're unfamiliar with as far as the takeoff's concerned, obviously one of the most important things is figuring out wind direction. And
a lot of times you're just limited, you know, how much space you get. So we'll do a bunch of different launch options. This is just that kind of a standard flat takeoff off of the side of a road. You'll notice you really need it to be wide enough. And what Chris is gonna show, we all understand going straight off, right? The air's coming up and over and laminar, and then setting up just like this, straight into the wind, no problem. The reality is, a lot of times we don't have that much space. It's a road that goes diagonal, and the wind is coming up the side. So what we're actually gonna do here is just show you what that looks like as far as bringing the wing up, controlling it, having the correct turn direction to go off the side of it. So Chris and I were just talking about it. Is it better to A's and brakes or A's and rears? And I think in this situation, and just like every situation, it's what you're comfortable with. The best thing you can do is just practice both of them. As far as this kind of crosswind launch now that he's setting up for, wind's coming straight in, his wings off to the side. It's most important that the downwind side is gonna get that most amount of airflow probably, right? This side's not gonna get that much. So he's gonna pull it up, it's gonna turn, and then he'll make sure it's nice and steady before he takes off. One of the big keys here is that Chris gives it a really nice solid pull to get it into that smooth air across the lip. So we'll take a look at that now. You can see how it turns there into the wind, but he didn't need too much space. Now he controls and runs off. You might have noticed that Chris turned right in that, and he did that because wing being off the side, whenever you've got the launch side on your right, you want to try to turn right. Now that's going to take practice, and it's not something that you should be trying necessarily for the first time in a race. It's something that you want to spend time making sure you can turn either direction. And dunes are a good spot to practice that, or at the local park, probably not on a launch. All right, Chris is getting ready to go again. We're now on a much steeper slope here, and you can see there's a fair amount of bushes and whatnot. And we'll just imagine that he doesn't have much room to run. Obviously, it's a training hill, he's got plenty of room, but use your imagination. The goal here is for Chris to, first of all, you'll notice that he's looking the direction he's gonna turn. And that way, oh, he should be. That way it's kind of in muscle memory which direction you're gonna turn. So there he goes. Look in the direction he's going to turn. You're looking for good cycles coming up. Sometimes you want the middle, sometimes you want the beginning. I find that normally the very beginning of a cycle, unless it's really light, is kind of the most confused part. I like to wait till it really is filled in and then go in the middle of a cycle. If there was a short runway here, that's kind of the most important thing of any launch, in my opinion, is the runway. You can launch off of damn near anything if you have the runway to move. So when I get to a spot to launch and I find a spot for my wing, that's great. Next step is, how far down can I run or move? Side to side, how much space do I have? Obviously this is amazing here, but it's not always amazing. So let's tell Chris that instead of this huge runway, let's tell him that right here, he's not allowed to go past that, okay? So if that's the case, with this much wind, he can use a lot more runway and give himself a lot more runway by moving up the hill. Go for it, Chris. Nice steady pull. Make sure it's not stuck on any sticks. You can see he's moving up the hill, up the hill, up the hill. And by the time that he gets to his cliff or his drop point, he's already off the hill. So, nice job. Sometimes you have a lot of wind on launch, and if you can set it up, is another reason to do this would be if you're limited from kind of side to side, if you only have a little bit of space. I've tried to tuck my wing under, and I've found that this setup with kind of big ears already in is the easiest way to pull your wing up if you're limited from side to side, and if you're in a good amount of wind. But haven't pulled up in that rosette or have built a little bit of a wall. So Chris will pull up now. You'll see he has big ears, and he'll just clear them as he goes. And those even clear pretty quick. So you could even do bigger big ears, and as it comes up off the ground, you'll give you space. The time not to do this would be if there's a lot of sticks. If you have a lot of sticks, those big ears, anytime you fold the wing kind of bottom surface down, it's going to pick up more. So if there's a lot of sticks, I'd go with the rosette. If there's not much sticks but not a lot of space and some wind, the big ears technique, much better than tucking underneath from my experience. So showed up on a launch and deciding where to launch, decided this is the right spot. I keep my wing always attached. That way it's going to be easiest to pull the lines out. If I'm looking ahead, I've got a huge runway, super important, honestly most important thing. Now I just take my wing, the way that I fold it is in such a way that all I've got to do is cut up on the tips. In the wind, that's all you're going to need. So once I've got the wing out, tips are out, I've gotten big coils underneath my hands, and now if there's sticks and whatnot, I'm going to try to set it up. So if I look up here, this line is kind of out of place. I'm just going to kind of pull it around until it all makes sense. If you take your time here, you're not going to get all fucked up when you're down there. You take a lot more time to clear it out as you go. I just set one loop out at a time and continue to clear my lines. Notice I've got one line on the ground and that's it, right? So all these lines are going to come down nice and clear on top of everything. That's the goal. All this is just a suggestion. You can do it however you want. This is what I have found to work for me. I put my hands through the brakes like this. If they're really big gloves, I make sure that they're kind of right on the edge here. And then when I go to pull up, depending on your wing, you have to decide what makes the most sense as far as, am I grabbing all the A's, the inner A's, and if it's a really tight launch, I might even grab the inner A's, but on the lines themselves. And then with my other hand, I personally always grab the rear risers. 3-liner, 2-liner, whatever it is. If you just pinch them together, it's going to bring the trailing edge of the glider in a little bit, making it much more manageable. It's the tips that really can get away from us. The A's and rears, I just want to pull it off the ground as slowly as it allows me to. I'm always looking for a consistent 1-2 over my head. So if the wind's really strong, if that 1-2, I'm going to pull it hard for showing. If the wind's really strong, just shoot right over my head. That was too fast. If I want to see that 2-second rise, I have to move towards it. It's going to give me more room to move. I can use my rears and my body. Comes up, 1, 2, overhead, and then the gear. I'm personally just a huge fan of, as you turn, you're doing that check overhead. It takes practice. I'll show it to you one more time. But as I turn around, I'm checking the glider, and if the wind's enough, or it's a steep enough launch, I don't even have to run forward. I'm already in the air. Use my hips, I load it, I go with the weight, as I turn, it comes overhead. I'm checking and flying away in one motion. That's it. All right, we're gonna talk about flapping. Really good technique for landing where you want to land, and I highly suggest you're very familiar with your stall point, specifically even parachutal. I'd say if you don't feel comfortable doing parachutal with your wing, flapping is probably not the best idea. Parachutal, don't know what it is, look it up. Take an SIV. I'll show you a couple of good flaps, and I'll show you some bad flaps. So with the good flap, it's really coming all the way to stall point and then all the way flying again. You can see the hands come down and back up. And you fly, and then you can do another one. Bad flap, you're gonna pull back, and eventually stall, and you're not gonna feel it. With a good flap, you're you're almost coming down vertically. Comes down vertically, comes forward, comes vertically, comes forward. I'll show you a bad one now.
Don't break your back.
So bad flap, really rapid like that, you're getting very little feedback in the wing. I can't feel hardly anything when that's happening. Because it's constantly going up and down, you're not getting the good feedback. The good flap, which you can practice a foot off the ground, and I'll show you, if I'm 1 foot off the ground, just come here. Really good feel all the way down. It comes back up, I stop the wing, and I'm back to flying normally. Obviously, just kiting in general is going to make you a much better launching and landing. You know, working on little things. Spin point. A lot of times when you're racing and you're quick and you're moving and you miss a little thing. Right now, what have I missed? I didn't have a clean V. But instead of staying here on the ground, and I've seen this too many times, people trying to fish it out on the ground and all this stuff, you can take off, you can fly like this. And when I go to clear it, what I like to do is reach up to the line itself, pull it down. That cleaned it, right? So again, if I've got my brakes, if I have my brakes kind of wrapped around something, I'm flying, I can feel it, or I'm even still on the ground. What I do is I just let go of the brake, I grab the brake line where it's free, I pull it down and it frees it. Very simple. None of this fishing around and losing your heading. Always focusing on your heading and launching. So that's with nothing fancy. That's just coming in at some speed, waiting until you're close to the ground and flaring. I care slightly what the wind direction's doing. And if it's over 12 miles an hour, I care more. But I'm just waiting as long as I can and doing a nice, consistent, full flare. Body kind of forward, you're gonna be just fine. All this flapping and swinging into the hill is great, but the reality is, we don't really need that much. The other option when it's really buoyant is just you want to come in a little low and then use your brakes and kind of modulate. I don't have to flap in order to really hurt my glide slope. I just use more braking.